I was talking about construction versus destruction and how I thought much of social media is about destruction. And I see it in my own industry. And so we're obviously excited to have the NBA back, and I'm excited to have Major League Baseball back, and I'm excited to have the NHL back. But what I see in my own industry is there are a lot of people on social media who make a living in sports media that it seems to me share all the most negative stories out there about the coronavirus. And I put up a poll question. We talked about this a little bit. 56,000 of you voted in it. And I asked, hey, based on what sports media members share on Twitter, do you think many of them are rooting for sports not to come back? And 77% of you said yes. And I said, okay, look, everybody's audience is not representative, no matter who they are, probably of the whole nation. So I said, I'd love to see another sports media member actually put this up on his or her Twitter feed and see what the results were. And so Darren Ravel did it, and his audience is different than mine, obviously, and he had around 33,000 people, I think, vote in his poll, and 48% of his audience said yes, 52% said no about whether they thought sports media was rooting for sports not to come back. And what is intriguing about that is his audience has certainly had a very different response than mine, but it was still a really high percentage of his audience that thought the same thing. And so if you combine those two audiences, we had around 90,000 people vote. And yes, some people might vote in both polls, but 90,000 people voting, and right at 2/3, 66% of people believed that the sports media was rooting against sports actually coming back. And I got a lot of feedback from people out there about why would fans believe this? Because, sports media people will say, well, it'd be so against my economic self-interest for sports to come back. But my argument is sports media in general has looked at everything going on with the coronavirus, and they have chosen as a group to typically share the worst story that is out there as evidence of why nothing can be done, right? And so using as an example the Miami Marlins. The Miami Marlins test positive. They have all the issues that have been going on with them. And the immediate storyline on Monday was, oh my God, we got to shut down Major League Baseball. There's no way to justify bringing back baseball based on what happened with the Marlins. That was the overall consensus. And a lot of people who were NFL media were like, how in the world is the NFL going to play? And a lot of people that are college football media were like, how in the world is college football going to play? That is, to me, a destructive line of thinking. Obstacle exists. Instead of trying to come up with a way to overcome that obstacle, you immediately say, well, let's throw up our hands. There's no way we can get past this. That's a fundamentally anti-American value way of thinking. It's anti-capitalistic. It's anti-everything that we have stood for as a country. And the media is rampant with stories like those. I got to give credit to Adam Silver. I think on China, he's been an unmitigated disaster. But Adam Silver came up with a bubble that makes a great deal of sense to figure out how to get the NBA back to playing and back to on television and get his guys back to work. I got to give credit to Gary Bettman, who came up with a way in the NHL, even with all the obstacles that exist, to getting an NHL season complete. I got to give credit to Rob Manfred, who got the Major League Baseball season back, to Dana White with the UFC, to what I think is going to be Roger Goodell with the NFL, and what I hope is going to be many different college football conference commissioners. I hope they're all going to find ways to get their sports back. They're having to build a solution to an incredibly difficult problem. That's hard work. Other people out there in the social media arena don't have to build solutions at all. They just have to show up and then just tear down whatever else somebody else is trying to build. And as I see this happening more and more on social media, I think it's a really fascinating question for all of us out there to think about. In our day-to-day lives, are we all as a group Are we building and constructing, or are we coming up with ways to destroy? And I just think it's such a fascinating way to look at the world. Sports has found a way to construct a method to return. That's hard work. The 100+ page rules that are in play right now that are different than have ever existed for the NBA or Major League Baseball or the NHL, they found a way. That's what America is about. We find a way even when there are immense obstacles in front of us. And what troubles me a great deal that I see happening all the time in America now is it seems like we're elevating people who aren't trying to find a way. They're just trying to destroy the way that others are trying to create. And so some people criticize me for being too optimistic. They've said, oh my God, Clay Travis, you are sharing too many reasons for optimism during the coronavirus. I never want to leave my house again. It's terrifying. Oh my God, you've been saying for months that you think sports are going to be back. Yeah, because I believe in American creators finding a way. I think we're going to have a vaccine one day. I believe that our American ingenuity and exceptionalism is going to rise to the challenge of this virus, just like we rose to the challenge in World War II. And just like throughout our history as a nation, and frankly, throughout world history, man has risen to the challenge time after time after time. But constructing things is hard, and it often leads to imperfect results. But what I wish all of us would spend more time doing, and certainly I'm guilty of this as well, it's easy to be negative. It's easy to tear down something. But how much work are we putting into building new things that are better than what we're tearing down? And how much easier is it to sit around on our phones and say, oh, that'll never work. Oh, look at that obstacle. This is stupid. Why are we trying to do anything at all? We're trying to do something because the credo of America has always been be better. That's what capitalism is. It's a constant mantra to be better. If your company is better than somebody else's company, they win. And over time, that efficiency leads to a rising standard of living for all of us out there. And so I want to applaud the NBA, even though I don't agree with everything they're doing. And I want to applaud Adam Silver for finding a way. The same thing with Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred. The same thing with Gary Bettman and hockey. And I want all of you, as we finish the first hour of this program, and I'm going to talk some about college football coming back to start off hour 2, and then I've got Todd Furman to talk about gambling with us. And then I got Petros Papadakis scheduled to join us in hour 3 and talk about the Clippers and the Lakers and Dodgers run that they're on and everything that's going on right now in the world of sports of college football, plus what happened with him and Jeff Goldblum. All of that's still to come on the show. But I just want you to think right now as we finish hour 1, construction versus destruction. How much time do I spend in my own life, and this is something I think about too, constructing something as opposed to just trying to tear down something else? How much time do I spend on Facebook constructing versus destructing? How much time do I spend in my marriage or with my child raising constructing versus destructing? How much time at work? Construction is hard. It requires a lot of effort and it's imperfect. Destruction is easy, but it often leads to worse results. It seems to me like far too often as a country we are leading into destruction. And I think that's why so many people in my industry are doing it, but also why so many sports fans out there are fundamentally rejecting many people in the sports media because we're tired as a country, I think, of destruction. Deep thoughts. We'll get back into college football when we return, but it's something that I've been thinking about a lot and I wanted to discuss with all of you. I appreciate you hanging out with me, spending your morning right here on OutKick. This is Fox Sports Radio.